You know him, you love him, you want some more of him. The Voiceover Doctor, a real smooth talker. The Voiceover Doctor Show.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, Jim Davey, ladies and gentlemen. Jim Davey and the Voiceover Doctor Memorial drum set there. Hey, it's Bill Holmes, the Voiceover Doctor. Thanks for coming to the show. I know I haven't been on the air for a while, but, you know, there is tequila to be had. So my guest today is someone who may not be too familiar to you, but you hear him pretty much every day on TV, I'm guessing. Pretty much every day?
Yeah.
Pretty much every day, okay. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ike Amadi. Ike Amadi. We're playing you in. I love that. Okay, Ike. Now, Ike is, you are the voice of SportsNet?
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
You still have that gig?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Hopefully.
Thank God. Otherwise, this is not as good of a show. And you're the voice of countless other things. Now, I've heard you on the radio for the CW network.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, you're still doing that?
Yeah, radio and TV.
Okay, what else? Give me a couple more where they might have heard.
I still do TNT opens from time to time. Do a lot of NFL Network.
And that's promo stuff you're talking
promo
about?
stuff.
Okay, right.
Do you mean just promo stuff?
Yeah, it is promo stuff for now. Yeah.
Okay.
And primarily, now you're the voice of SportsNet, which is the Lakers network. Correct?
Yeah. They do the Lakers, the LA Galaxy, and the Sparks.
And the Sparks. Okay. And now, aren't they expanding to other regions around the country as well?
That's what I've been told. I mean, I'm not in charge, so I don't know for sure. But
you don't own the network yet?
No, unfortunately.
Well, let's work on that. Okay, so this is a kind of a let's go to the 80s and say this is a very special Voiceover Doctor show tonight because Ike actually started out as one of my students, and it was a while ago, about 5 years ago?
I think it was longer. I was actually thinking about it. I think it was in 2007.
2007, okay, that we met. And we actually met by circumstance, actually, by kind of happenstance. I needed a website designer for my film Stump the Band. I just happen to have a copy here, okay? And we were designing, when we were selling Stump the Band, we were designing a website, and I met GK.
Yes.
What's her, GK?
Bose.
Bose,
yeah.
GK Bose. And we were at Bob Bergen's Vox on the Rocks, actually, over at down at Kuko's in Glendale at the time. And she said, look, I've got this guy who babysits for me, right?
Yeah.
You were babysitting at one point. And he's a web designer. He does his web design stuff, and he's kind of interested in the voiceover business. And were you doing anything in voiceover at that point?
Actually, at that point, what started it was in college. They had this contest about Oreos or something like that, and so they had this copies. Yeah, I know. Yeah. They had this copy, and they had a bunch of people read it, and I ended up winning, and so I ended up doing the spot. But of course, I didn't know anything about residuals or this, that, and the other. So they gave me $50 and said thank you.
Well, isn't it the Nabisco company was treating you right, weren't they? Okay.
But after that, I always said to myself, I want to get into voiceover. So fast forward years later, I met GK. We'd known each other for a while, and I babysat her kids. Were very tight. And so, one day I sat her down. I was like, I really want to get into this. Who can I talk to? And she goes, actually, I know the perfect guy.
Oh.
Yeah.
Was she talking about me or Bob Bergen? I love having the drummer here. Jim Davey, ladies and gentlemen. So
I'm pretty sure
talking
Bob
about
Bergen.
me. Okay. You got me. Okay. So anyway, you started working on my website.
Yes.
And in kind, I was giving you voiceover lessons.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you have had quite a hell of a run of a career since we met at that time, haven't you?
It's been good. Yeah.
And that's kind of why we wanted Ike on the show today, to show you kids out there that you start from scratch, you start somewhere, and you work hard and you build up your career. Now again, granted, you do kind of have the voice of God. I
don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what you're talking about, man. Give me a little. I don't know. Give me a little.
I don't know what you're talking about.
There you go.
It's weird. I feel like very uncomfortable.
Jim, give a little thunder kind of. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, the voice of God. And so that is helpful, but again, what I want to emphasize everybody out there who's watching the show tonight or today or wherever the hell you're watching the show is how hard you work to get where you are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So really, before we start, we've talked a little bit about how we met and everything. Are you thirsty?
Yeah, I could.
Would you like a little drink?
Yeah,
How about now? You don't drink alcohol.
No, I don't.
Okay, you kids out there, don't drink and drive. It's bad for you. Ike says so. So Ike doesn't drink. So we've got some cranberry juice for you.
Oh, perfect.
But I have a pomegranate margarita coming. Margarita.
Okay.
Oh, Margarita, would you come in here, please? Oh, this is Margarita. There you go. Oh.
Thank you.
Oh. Hello, Margarita. Oh, thank you, sweetheart. Thank you, my love. Thank you. Oh, what?
Oh,
What's that?
doctor.
Yes.
Your pulse is racing.
No, yes, it is. Oh. Here's to you on the Voiceover Doctor show.
Thank you.
Oh, you gotta love margarita. No.
All right.
Oh, that's tart. I always forget about this. Okay, so listen. A couple of questions.
Okay.
Let's start from the beginning. Where are you from?
I'm Nigerian.
You're Nigerian.
I was born in Nigeria.
Okay.
And
So you immigrated here to the United States.
Yes.
So you are the American dream.
I guess in a
You are
sense, yeah.
living the American dream.
Yeah, we moved directly from Nigeria to D.C.
And about how old were you when you came here?
About 11 or so
Okay.
when we. Then we moved from D.C. to Kansas City.
Uh-huh.
And that's mostly where I grew up, was Kansas City, suburb actually of Kansas City, Belton, Missouri.
So you're a Midwestern African guy.
Yeah, you could say that.
Okay.
Weird, but yeah,
I
you
know.
could actually say that. Yeah.
It's kind of funny. And then when did you start acting? You started acting in high school?
In
or-
high school, actually.
Yeah?
The funny thing is that at the time, I didn't have a lot of friends in high school, to be honest, my freshman and sophomore years of high school, because I was that weird kid who nobody wanted to hang out with.
In what way were you weird?
Well,
I can't imagine you being weird. and really,
More
you don't
weird
want.
than
You know, wait a
now.
minute. You don't want to open that up because I know the weird things you do.
I know.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. Thank you. That being said,
I'm loving that.
I had a specific teacher. Her name is Miss Thomas, and if she sees this, I'm still very grateful.
Miss Thomas, there you go.
She
That's
set me
nice.
aside and said, I'm going to help you, learn debate and forensics. And that was
okay.
how it started. And so I walked away from playing sports, which is the thing that sort of ingratiated me into other kids.
Right.
That was how people noticed me at first, is because I was running track and playing football and things of that nature. And so
Not baseball. You didn't play baseball.
not baseball.
Yeah.
Not baseball.
Because I played baseball with you.
Awesome.
You're not that good.
No. Anyway, doing the other thing, she was the one that kind of got me to pull away from that stuff, and so I did a lot of debate at first, and ended up doing forensics after a while. I actually went to nationals my senior year of high school in forensics.
Oh,
Yeah.
for what?
And I took
Well, what
third
category?
place, I think,
Like dramatic
for,
acting?
for dramatic acting.
Dramatic duet or dramatic interp?
Dramatic interpretation.
Because I too did forensics.
Really?
Back in high school.
Yeah.
I don't know that we ever talked about that.
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
Yeah. And I went downstate too.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I won.
Oh, yeah, I didn't. Of course, they threw me out of acting school too. So, what the hell? So you started acting there.
Yeah.
Okay. And then let's move to college. You did some things in college.
Yeah, so from there, I had this real love of theater because as soon as I started in forensics, I discovered theater and went from there. And so in college, actually, it started because my freshman year, I got there and I was, after 2 or 3 days of being there, I saw this flyer for a show that they were doing. And I saw that I'd missed the day for auditions, but the callback was the next day.
Yeah.
And so I called the teacher or the director, not the teacher, the director, and his wife answered. And I said, hey, I'm a new student. I'm a freshman, and I'd really, really like to get in on the show. And she goes, well, you missed the auditions. And I said, I know. And she said, well, you know what? I'll call my husband. I'll let him know. And just come to the callbacks. And I was like, really? She said, yeah, just come. I said, okay. So the next day I went down there, and he said, yeah, my wife told me about you. Here's the script. Go look it over.
What was the show?
Come back. It was called The African Company Presents Richard III. It was this show about this set of Jamaican immigrant slaves, right? Or free Jamaican immigrants in the time of slavery who were doing their own, because on the white side of town they were doing Richard III, right? So they decided to do their own version of Richard III with a kind of a Jamaican theme on it.
I would have loved to have seen that.
It was a great show.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
The white side of town had hired this, I think, Italian guy to come in and play Richard III, and so he had none of it. So it ended up in the show that the show ended up getting shut down. It was a great show. But the point is, I came in, auditioned, and I ended up getting the lead in the show as a freshman, which is great. And so from there, I just kept doing shows all throughout college.
So basically, you're saying you have always lived a charmed life, and things have come easily to you.
That is not what I'm saying.
No? Oh, okay.
Because the part that I left out is that, for just like one thing about me, I have to say, is that I learned very early from my parents was diligence. I'm big on discipline.
Now, just real quick, give us a little background on your parents. Your dad was a diplomat, wasn't he?
No, actually. He was a pastor.
Oh, pastor?
Yeah, my dad's a pastor. And so
I thought he had some kind of diplomatic...
family stuff, but not really involving him specifically.
Okay.
Yeah, so... my mom, so when they moved to the U.S., my dad started his own insurance agency, and my dad...
As most pastors do. You having trouble out there? God'll help you. But if he doesn't, here, buy this. I'm sorry, I'm just going with what comes at me here.
My mother went on to, run an HMO, went into nursing, basically.
Okay.
And so, but the two of them, our culture is very much about discipline. If there's one thing Nigerians do, it's go to school. Everybody goes to school. Yeah. And that requires, a specific set of discipline and diligence. Yeah. And so I grew up with that attitude. So during, when I first got into forensics, I practiced every day. Mm-hmm. In fact, there's something that I am very thankful to Miss Thomas for that I read. She had this sign above in her classroom that said, for every moment of every day that you are not practicing, somewhere someone is. And when you meet them in competition, they will beat you. And that became the mantra for my life.
I like that.
Yeah, it was huge for me.
So she was a huge influence.
Huge, yeah.
Yeah, that's nice. I like that, though. That's cool. So you're successful in the high school. You did some college stuff.
Yeah.
Then did you start acting in Missouri or Kansas, or did you come right out here?
I came right out. Yeah. Well, I didn't come right out.
You came to LA about when? About how old?
2004. So I was 23.
Okay. All right.
No, I was 24. I think I was 24.
So a snot-nosed kid.
Yeah.
Came right out to LA.
Yep.
And what did you start doing? Babysitting?
Right off the bat.
Yeah.
No, actually, I came out and initially was doing extra work like everybody does.
Okay.
So
you went down to Central Casting.
Yeah. Signed up. Got in there. Was doing it. I think I did extra work 2 times, and I looked at myself in the mirror the second night. I was like, I will never do this again. It's like,
not to say that people who are doing extra work, it's a fine profession.
Yeah, it wasn't for me. But I said that's the end.
Okay.
So from there, after I swore I'd never do it again.
Yeah.
Literally, like the next day, I get a call and it's like, "Hey, we want you to come do extra work on this show, but there's an opportunity to get a SAG card and like all this stuff and so on and so forth." Like so, I said, "Okay." So I went down there, and it turns out that I got to do that. We had to do a little bit of stunt work because we were being arrested and so on and so forth like that. But the show aired maybe 2 or 3 months later, and as I was watching it, I get a call from a friend of mine, and she's like, "Is that you on?" I think the show was called American Dreams. I think it was the name.
Oh
of the
yeah,
show.
I remember American Dreams. Yeah.
So
like a 1950s,
something like that.
style
Yeah.
show, yeah.
So she's like, she said, "Is that you?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Well, actually, I have a friend that's an agent, and he's looking for people like you." And I was like, "Really?" She said, "Yeah." So she set me up, and that was how I got my first agent.
So again, it's not a charmed life or anything. You just happen to get an agent, which is kind of 90% of how tough it is out here, right?
He was great.
So that, and then you just started getting more theatrical work then?
Yeah, so from there, I after a couple of, I think it took me 6 months or so to book my first commercial, and so at that point I was just sort of doing a lot of, not a lot, I should say. In the early days I was doing commercial here, commercial there, but I was working my way up, and at a point after about a year of doing that, my agent left the agency.
Okay.
And so when he left the agency, I was like, oh, well, what am I going to do, and so on, like that. But at the same time, the next weekend, and now that I'm actually saying this out loud, it's funny.
Charmed life.
Yeah.
Here comes another charmed life story. I'm just seeing it come your way now.
The next weekend, I was at a friend's barbecue.
Yeah.
And that friend happened to have some agents there.
So for God's sakes, go to as many barbecues as you possibly can.
And I was talking to him. I didn't know he was an agent. And
Yeah.
so we were just talking like regular people, talking about sports, talking about life and so on and so forth like that. And, at a point, he stopped and said, "So what do you do?" And I said, "I'm an actor." He's like, "Oh, really?" He goes, "Are you any good?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm good." He goes, "Okay, well."
So you lied like all actors do.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, there you go.
He said, "Well, come in. I'm actually an agent." He
Yeah.
goes, "Come in. I'll have you read me, and if you're good, we'll take you." I was like, "Okay." So I did that. I came in, and it turns out, got together and got with the
Was this a
agency.
commercial agent, theatrical?
Yeah, it was a commercial agent.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and so from there, that kind of opened up a lot more doors. I was doing commercials more regularly
Right.
after that. This is about the time that we met.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at that time, then you kind of start studying voiceover.
Yes.
Okay. And let's hold that thought for a minute. Okay. We're going to we'll cut to a commercial. Okay. And we'll be right back, and we'll continue the saga of the journey of Ike Amadi, immigrant actor.
The Voiceover Doctor presents Margaritas, Mojitos, and Microfones. At Compost Productions, we bring in the professionals for you to work with and learn from. Get behind the microphone and be directed by the best so that your performance shines. Mingle with these professionals like Rob Paulsen and Maurice Lamarche, and sometimes even the doctor himself. And let one of our talented mixologists serve you a margarita. Come join us at Compost Productions for margaritas, mojitos, and microfones. Viva el Voiceover Doctor!
There you go. Margaritas, mojitos, and microphones. And the Voiceover Doctor Show is brought to you by Fortaleza Tequila. Fortaleza Tequila.
Fortaleza, actually.
Huh?
Fortaleza.
I can say anything I want, Dave. It's my show. Fortaleza Tequila. It's the best goddamn tequila that I've ever had. Fortaleza. Ike, would you like some?
I'm good.
Oh, that's right. You're here, Dave. You take a little. Have a little Fortaleza, Dave. There you go. There you go. Okay. Oh. Look at that. Okay. All right. Hey, Ike, get your
All
little
right,
cranberry
let's
juice
do
there.
this.
It's great having you on
There
the
you
show.
go.
Dave, there you go. Oh, no. Oh, Fortaleza, the best goddamn tequila I've ever had. All right, so we'll be doing another commercial soon. All right, so we're back. And we were talking about you getting into the voiceover end of this thing.
Yes.
So, did you study with anyone before you started studying with me?
I did, actually.
Who was that?
There was.
Well, I don't know. Should we not mention him?
Well, we
Let's
don't have
not
to mention his
him.
name.
Yeah, we don't want
It
to
doesn't
plug.
matter.
We don't want to plug other people
Well,
on the show.
it wasn't very good, to be honest.
Huh?
It was
Okay,
terrible.
then you probably don't want to say.
Yeah. Well, I
I'll bet I
wouldn't
could
want to.
guess. No, I'm not even gonna. I'm not even gonna go there. Yeah, Jim. In a minute, Jim. Okay, go ahead.
It wasn't very good. It doesn't matter. It was a bad experience, and
Yeah.
I'm glad.
Okay, so you started studying with
Yes.
the voiceover doctor
Yeah.
here, okay? And as I recall, you kind of, that actually reminds me of a story. When I was a boy, drum solo, ladies and gentlemen, Jim Davies drum solo. Jim Davies drum solo. So anyway, all right. So you started studying with me,
Yes.
okay? And tell me that experience, because as I recall, you started at the basic. You started
Yeah.
with real basic stuff,
Yeah.
as
yeah.
I recall. Now, why did you go so basic, even though you had been acting for a while?
The reason why was I've always believed in understanding something at its simplest root, at the fundamentals first.
Okay.
And also because the first time I read something, you looked at me and you were like, "Boy, your voice is great, but you are terrible."
I don't think that's within my personality to say something like that. EK, I take offense of it.
So after that, I
you
feel
were
like I
pretty
didn't
bad.
really have a choice.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that was I started really at the bottom of the basics, talking about everything that we talk about.
Well, here's the thing. Here's what I want to get across to people. We'll be serious for a minute here. About you is that work ethic that you talked about that your parents taught you.
Yeah.
Because you've actually, EK is actually friends with my children now. I have children in their 20s, and you guys hang out and stuff. And you have kind of imparted that upon them, too, which
Really?
I'm very grateful for. But what I liked about you and what I admired about you the most, having worked with you over the years, is you started at, let's say the bottom, and you really just worked so hard to get yourself to where you were. I mean, you did the commercial thing, and I'll tell the story. There's a casting director in town who, there was this Denny's commercial. Remember the Denny's commercial?
Oh yeah, that's right.
And they were looking for kind of a deep voice guy. And I kept saying to this particular casting director, I said, I got this guy. He's in my class. He's got this deep voice. And they were like, kind of like, well, he's new, and I don't think so, and I don't think he's got the experience. And I said, look, this guy's, he's got the voice, though. You got to see him. So, and it was at the time, Burt Reynolds was doing the Denny's commercials. Okay. And this was a second role within the commercial. And as I recall the story, tell me if I'm wrong, you actually came in and auditioned,
Yep.
okay? We sent it in. Not only did you get that part, but at the session, when you were doing the spots,
Yeah.
the story goes that they liked you so much that they got rid of Burt Reynolds and they gave you the campaign,
That's
which turned
true.
into about 8 or 9
Something like that.
national commercials.
Yeah, mhm.
That was kind of one of your first gigs, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
big gigs.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
So it goes back to the charmed life thing. It's kind of, we're going right back to that. You're just the luckiest motherfucker I know. No. It's not just all luck, because you worked very hard. That was about a year and a half into doing a lot of classes and stuff.
Yeah.
As I recall.
Yeah.
So, and again, the other thing I want to embarrass you about a little bit is when you start a new thing, you started promos, you started games and cartoons and stuff, you just always start at the bottom and you work your way up. So let's talk about a couple of your video games here. Well, actually, let's stay with the commercials for a minute.
Okay.
Give me a list of, I got a couple that I remember. You were
Okay.
the voice of Denny's for a while.
Yeah.
You were the voice of Ford Flex.
Yes.
As I recall. That was one of your first really big
That's true,
commercials,
yeah.
right? Big campaigns. That's when he started taking me to lunch. That's how I remember it. Hoover vacuum cleaners.
Yes.
What else? Throw out a few more that just think, because once Ford hit, just things started really. Who was your first big time agent
My
Who
first
actually
big-time
signed you?
agent was
that were getting you all these commercials?
Bradford Bricken.
Brad Bricken.
Bradford
Brad
Bricken,
Bricken.
yes.
We love Brad Bricken.
Yes, we do.
And at the time, he was at Abrams.
Abrams, yes.
At
Mhm.
Abrams. And then he subsequently went to Special Artists, and he
Yes.
became my agent
Uh-huh.
back then. And then Brad has now went on to manage writers now. He's a manager now. But so you had Brad Bricken first.
Yes.
Okay. And he's the one who got you Ford
Yes.
and Denny's.
Yes.
And all the big time
Actually,
stuff.
Not the Denny's thing, but at the time I was doing Ford, I was doing Black Magic Titanium, like a wheel cleaner.
Oh, okay.
I was doing, before Denny's, there was IHOP that I was doing. There were a couple McDonald's spots in there, you know, lots of miscellaneous stuff. But yeah, Brad was great.
Brad
was
is
excellent.
great.
Yeah.
And Brad is a guy from Tennessee, and he wears bow tie. I used to call him Matlock all the time. I love Brad Bricken. Because he introduced me to Jeff Jones and Tom Lawless, who are my agents now over at the VOX.
No.
So then you did the commercial thing.
Yeah.
But then I remember you saying to me, you know, I really want to get into video games.
Yeah.
And so what did you do to get into video games? Just as an actor, from an acting point of view. What did you do?
I started watching cutscenes of video games. You know,
Yeah.
It seems to me like whenever you do something.
Explain that to people, so if they want to do it themselves,
You know,
what exactly is that?
In video games, everyone who plays video games, or even if you don't, you know, there's little scenes that tell the story and move the story forward when you're not actually playing. And so if you want, you can always go to YouTube, and usually they're listed there based on the name of the game. So what I did was I went there and I would just watch them like I'd watch an animated show. But the thing I learned very quickly, especially from commercials, is that every genre has its own style, its own way of doing things. And so the idea was to understand not so much like what I needed to do, but what they wanted, like what it was that they had going on. And so I would sit and watch those over and over and over and just sort of try to figure out how I could fit what I did into what they wanted.
Kind of by osmosis or something?
Well, no, I mean, I would say it, I would try to, like, for instance, I'd watch something and then I'd see what, you know, like pick a particular character and try to come up with extra lines for that character. So they'd be having a conversation and I would just continue that conversation, you know, in the character's voice, you know, as they were doing it. And so I would do that for everything that I watched, time and time and time and time again. So at first it sort of came out as mimicry. You know, and then over time, I had to drop the mimicry and find a way to organically from where I was coming from. You know, so instead of it just me repeating the lines that they were saying, I would try to find where if the character was feeling this or doing this, how that came across through my own voice.
Right.
And so that was how it started.
And that's almost like you've invented kind of an improvisational exercise.
Yeah,
in a way, because you know, because when you're doing improv, you know, because I've done a lot of improv in my career. When you're doing improv, if you're not sure what to do on stage, sometimes if you just start copying everything that's being done on stage, it kind of organically gets you into gets the oil going and stuff. You know, the scene rolling, and that's kind of what you were doing.
Yeah.
So you know, so the improv training out there, kids. Okay.
It's true.
Right.
It helped a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. So, a couple of shows you're on here. Mass Effect 3.
Yes.
You played Javik?
Yes.
Javik?
Yeah.
Javik? What is it?
It's Javik.
Javik.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fortaleza.
We're not there yet, Dave. You'll get more in a minute. So, now, again, being the old guy who never plays, you're kind of a game nerd, aren't you? I mean, you play these games, you're into these games.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. So you go to the conventions? Do you go to the
No,
conventions?
I'm not a convention guy.
No?
I'm not big on crowds, you know, so conventions aren't.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
No.
You don't like people? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
You're not crazy
That's what
about
I'm saying.
people.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you see him on the street, leave him the hell alone. Okay. Now, is this a big time character in this game? I don't know the game. So.
It's an ensemble cast, so it was one of the ensemble of the cast.
Like, who's the guy? Who's the guy?
The guy is Commander Shepard.
Commander Shepard
Was the main guy, right?
Okay.
And then he had a crew that surrounded him, which was like his ensemble cast. And
Okay.
so Javik was this alien, basically, that had been frozen since time before the current time.
Wow.
And so he comes back, he's this great soldier, and, you know, he learns a lot about what's happening now in the present, and they learn a lot from him about how things were. So he has all these great lines.
Give us a little of the character.
He's very, I wish I had some of the lines.
Oh,
so I
make
feel like I'm
something
saying
up, for Christ's sake. Just do something. You're an actor.
Putting me on the spot,
Yeah,
huh?
well, of
Love
course,
that.
yes.
Okay.
That's what they want to see. They want to see, come on, dance, monkey, dance. Dance for grandma. Dance for grandma. Who am I anyway? Now I'm doing chorus line. Go ahead, come on.
Actually, I don't remember any of the lines, which is the funny
Just say
part.
something like what they would say in the character's voice. Bill, I'm going to kill you tomorrow at midnight.
Bill, I'm going to kill you tomorrow at midnight.
There you go.
There it is.
You go. There's the line. Okay, that's all I'm looking for. Lord of the Rings, War in the North. War in the North.
Oh, yes.
Okay, you played, who did you play?
Argast.
Argast,
a
yes.
dragon.
Argast?
Yeah,
Argast.
Argast.
Yeah, okay. A dragon?
Yes.
Oh, you got to be the voice of a dragon?
Yeah, that was
That is so
great.
cool.
Love
Can you
that.
give us a little of the
Let's
dragon
see.
voice?
I
You
can give
know, when Bill Farmer was on as Goofy,
Yeah.
he could just do Goofy
That's
like
'cause
that
he's
without even
Bill
thinking
Farmer.
about
He's
it. Come on.
way better than
Bob
me.
Burton, he goes right into the pig. Come on. I love this man. No, okay. Well, the dragon voice is...
Argast sounded like this. Everything he had, this deep voice. So it was difficult for us to actually mic it. I had to get really close to the microphone because you
Here,
could.
get up in here.
Urgar sounded like this. He was menacing and powerful.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you something, because this is something that people ask me a lot.
Yeah.
Is that hard to sustain? Like, are you doing like 2-3 hour sessions?
Yeah.
And is it, because I notice it's really in your throat
Yeah.
and everything. Is that a tough one for you to do?
It actually, I learned, one of the things that I haven't mentioned actually is that early on in my career, I went to a vocal coach.
A vocal coach?
Yeah, and I sat her down and I said, hey, listen, her name is actually Mama O. She's amazing.
Mama O.
Yeah.
If anybody needs a vocal coach, Mama O.
And I told her what I was doing.
I knew another Mama O, entirely different genre of the entertainment business.
Terrible.
You gotta love having Jim here. Fortaleza. Yeah, there you go. We gotta get a wacka wacka whack. Okay, so go ahead. So you went to a vocal coach, Mama
Yeah,
O.
and I told her, this is what I want to be able to do. I want to be able to stretch from one end to the other and back and forth. And she said, okay. And she gave me a set of vocal exercises to help strengthen me to be able to do that.
Oh man, that's
Yeah.
great.
And so I do these exercises every day.
Do you really?
Yeah, I do them every day.
Because of the discipline that your parents taught you.
Exactly. Yeah. And so
over the years. Now look, I'm not a guy, because people ask me all the time, are there vocal exercises I can do? And I always look at people like, I don't know, because I don't do them. Guy who makes a lot of money, guy who's doing a free show drinking booze. Okay? So just, you may want to follow what he's talking about. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So they actually
So it's
opened
not
me
really
up
that
and-
hard to
No, it's
to
not
sustain
hard
then.
to sustain anymore
because you've trained
I
your
learned
voice
the
to do
place where you could do it and stay there and be comfortable. Because those sessions are 4 hours.
Yeah.
And so from top to bottom, I'd be doing that voice.
Yeah.
But it was because of those vocal exercises.
that. Now I've just started getting into the gaming world
Yeah.
myself, and I find because I'm not playing the main characters, I'm playing research number 1, which is fine with me because it pays the same. But I'm finding that they're more interested in you bringing it in on the exact timing of the line. Is that now that when you have the larger roles,
Yeah.
bigger roles in the bigger games, do you feel that they're not just plugging it in from the Japanese games, that you get to be more creative with it?
Yeah, I've found that. Sometimes, of course, there are times when you've got to make it in a particular time or they just want it faster. But for the most part, I've really enjoyed video games because they've let me be able to do what I wanted to do,
Yeah.
to play around and sometimes bring something a little bit different. Like that character Javik, we actually played with how the voice was going to be for a while. It took us a while to come to where it actually settled into. And then even later on, some of his attitude that came out in the game was something that came about organically between me and the director as we talked about, what she wanted.
So the initial audition was
Yeah.
not necessarily that guy.
No, it wasn't.
So do you remember what you did for the initial audition, which kind of got you into the door?
It was more. It was more ethereal. Like he was more like wizened and less forceful and more just simpler. But then over
Or was
time,
it that kind of throaty thing at the same time?
It wasn't.
It wasn't.
It wasn't at all.
It was
And
just
so-
your deep voice thing
yeah,
that you do, kind
yes.
of?
And so over time, like as we talked about, what his motivations were and so on and so forth like that, that's what gave him, because the more we understood like this character, he's a soldier and not just a soldier, the soldier.
Yeah.
And so he didn't have time to talk about your feelings or why you did this or whatever. He gave you orders, you did it, that's how it worked.
Yeah.
And so all of that started to come across in the voice, and so the tones had to fit that character, that guy who doesn't play around. So yeah, it turned into something very different.
That's pretty cool, isn't it? That's pretty cool. Okay. I got a couple more. You did Starcraft 2, Wings of Liberty, but those are just general voices?
They were, Starcraft 2 is a strategy game, so a lot of the units have different voices. And so
Okay.
because the units have different voices, the units have different voices basically, and so I voiced some of the separate small units, but they all have their own lines and their own little characters and their own little
So it's
personalities.
just like kind of general, you're this guy, you're this guy, you're
Yeah,
this guy.
yeah.
When you go in to voice a video game, they expect you to do more than one character, right?
Most of the time, yes.
Yeah, usually they hire you to do at least 3 characters.
Yeah,
Isn't that correct?
yeah.
Okay, cool. And then Quantum of Solace and The Bourne Conspiracy.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that you had on IMDb that I looked up.
those were.
Do we have anything else that we're doing?
Yeah, but I can't.
But
talk
you can't
about,
talk about it.
can't talk
Oh
about
my God, we got some big stuff coming up, and you heard it here first on the Voiceover Doctor show. I'll be damned. Look at that. Okay, listen, we'll take a little break.
Sure.
We talked about the video games. We're gonna take a little break, and we'll be right back after this with a word from our sponsor, Stump the Band.
Did they like the demo?
I wouldn't be here if they didn't like it.
So they're gonna sign it.
I make recommendations, not decisions.
I've got a southern roll,
They're the hottest new band around.
always in bloom.
They're like the Go-Go's on steroids, man.
Inside my underwear,
And 2 days away
Call me when you get to LA.
from the biggest break of their careers.
I've got more meat than you
Blah, 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 let's get the hell out of here.
I'm telling you, ladies, we'll be releasing our first album within the year.
But one wrong turn
What was that?
I think it was a dog.
will change everything.
Let's get back in the van, guys.
Where are we?
I don't think this road's on the map, Gilligan.
Looks like you got us lost, Marianne.
Elaine! Is somebody there?
Take Billy for a walk.
Let's do the Billy. They came out of nowhere. Those freaks.
You guys just stay in the van, all right?
Whoa, Phil Spector. Where the hell did you get that?
Oddly enough, Phil Spector.
Brace yourself for the first ever rock and roll horror comedy chick flick.
Looks like your little friends are up to something. If you catch her, you can keep her.
I'm not going down like this. Neither are you.
I'm gonna go get your girlfriend.
We all have to go sometime. It's not so bad dying. Some of us have to go soon.
We're a band. We stick together.
Stump the Band.
Mother used to say, take care of your feet, and your feet will take care of you.
Going to the gig? Don't forget to bring your axe.
It's not so bad dying.
Okay, that last break, Stump the Band. For God's sakes, buy Stump the Band. And we also have some T-shirts left. Here, buy your. Wait, I wrote a commercial. Buy your copy of Stump the Band at compostproductions.com, ladies and gentlemen. And there's still a limited supply of T-shirts left. Stump the Band T-shirts in some sizes. Okay, so some sizes. Stump the Band and the Voiceover Doctor Show are brought to you by Fortaleza. Fortaleza, the best goddamn tequila I've ever had in my life. Ike, would you like some?
No, thanks.
Here, Dave, why don't I get you some? Here you go.
Oh, thank
Here
you.
you go, Dave.
Okay.
All right,
Here's to you.
Is that,
There you
oh,
go.
thank you, Jim. Okay, Dave, here's to you. Okay. Oh, God. You know what that is, Dave? You know what that is? That's the best goddamn tequila I've ever had in my life. All right, so there we go. Hey, you were our first Stump the Band T-shirt model.
Was I the first?
You were the only one, really.
Well,
That's all we had was the Stump the Band T-shirt model. You were dating some chick. I don't remember her name, but she was very good looking, and good looking women tend to like flock to you. Have you noticed that?
No, I haven't.
You haven't noticed that,
No,
really?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Perhaps you should take note of that.
Done and done.
Yes, because they're always very nice-looking ladies. And here, let's Dave put up the voiceover T-shirt picture of Ike there. Okay, there it is, right there. And so this is you. This was one of your first modeling jobs in Los Angeles,
guess so,
wasn't
yeah,
it?
yeah.
Yeah. And what did we pay you for that?
Nothing.
Not a goddamn thing. All right. So, okay, we're back here. Listen, we're getting close to the end of this. Is that happy? Are you happy?
Yeah,
about
I'm
that?
thrilled.
Are
Yeah,
you? Okay.
fantastic.
I'm actually really interested because again, now you did. Do you do cartoons too?
Yeah, a little bit. It's actually something new that I've just started to break into. Actually, it's the next thing that I'm working on. So.
And tell me how you started doing that now.
Actually, very much the same way. You know, I had.
What do you do on Saturday mornings?
Watch cartoons.
Do you really?
Yeah, I do actually. It actually started
and
with.
Some of them are just so god awful, aren't they?
I'm not gonna say that.
No, come on. I mean, again, I grew up watching cartoons.
Yeah.
I watched my children grow up watching their cartoons.
Yeah.
And what they think are classic cartoons.
Yeah.
I think are shit. I think they're just crap. Wait a minute. Do you need a refill here?
Yeah, I can.
Margarita, you wanna come in here and let's give you. Yeah. Margarita stuck around. All right. She'll be back with a little more
Excellent.
cranberry juice for you. Cranberry juice. Okay. So what? You sit on Saturday mornings, you watch the Saturday morning cartoons.
Actually, it started. I came to you actually and said I wanted to do animation, and you were the one that told me to talk to Bob.
Bob Bergen.
Yeah, Bob Bergen. So it actually started with me taking his class, which was excellent.
Tell me about that experience. Let's give Bob a plug here.
Bob was, I mean, if you don't know, Bob is the
Bob
greatest.
Bergen, of course, is the voice of Porky Pig.
Yes.
And he's been on the show several times.
Just
he's a friend of the show.
Excellent teacher. And, going through his class, I learned a lot about letting go, being able to be free in the character and, go with what you come up with and not be afraid to experiment and fly around, But after taking the class, that attitude I took to watching what other people were doing, and I watched old classic stuff, like I went and bought all the DVDs of Pinky and the Brain, with Maurice and
Maurice and Rob Paulsen.
And Rob Paulsen, and things of that nature.
Friends of the show. Look in the archives. You can watch the shows with Maurice and Bob.
Yeah, but these guys are amazing, So I went to the footage of the guys who were doing it the best, and I would just watch it and watch it and watch it and do the same thing. I wouldn't necessarily try to do the same voices that they were, but try to figure out where the character was coming from and emulate that sort of attitude or feeling or whatever it was, and continue the conversation.
And let me add something on that, because I worked with I had the privilege of working with Maurice LaMarche and Rob Paulsen on we produce a radio drama version of A Christmas Carol, and directing those guys is like not working at all. Yeah. As a director, and the really cool thing with them is I don't think they looked at the script at all before they came in, and I handed them the scripts, and I said to Maurice, I said, Mo, have you been, have you thought about this? He's like, no, why don't we take a look at it? I mean, literally that day, and he just kind of opened the script, and I said, what were you thinking for Scrooge? And he's like, well, I don't know, and he just started kind of doing this thing where he was kind of Scrooge, Cratchit, and he starts kind of doing this character,
sort of
and he started
it.
doing the lines, and then Rob was playing Bob Cratchit, and then he starts doing the meek, kind of Mr. Scrooge, blah blah blah, and it was just so fun for me, a fellow actor and a director, to watch them just kind of organically become these guys. And then, Mo kind of looked at me and he was kind of like, I was thinking, how about that? Do you like that? I go, yeah, I love that. I love what you're doing. And bam, they knocked it out in like 3 hours. They and it was the only time directing that particular project that I looked at Gio, our engineer, and I said, just start rolling. I'll wade through it later. I want to get everything these guys do. And the fun part is before we started, they were doing Scrooge as Pinky and the Brain, and they were doing Scrooge as the Animaniacs, and Bob Hope and Bing Crosby, and it was just fun to watch them just play and have a good time. And again, that's kind of what that project was about, because really, radio is dead. And the other thing, the other story I want to tell about Maurice LaMarche is, they came in and did a voiceover doctor, a margarita night for me. And again, which you can watch in our archives. And I said to Maurice, I said, listen, he called me up and said, okay, what am I doing for you? I said, well, you're going to come in and, people pay money and they're going to drink and you get to direct them. He goes, oh, no, I don't direct. I don't teach. He goes, I just don't do that. I don't feel like I'm confident enough to do that. And I was like, what? What the fuck are you talking about? You're Maurice LaMarche, And so I said, well, look, I'll direct people and you sit next to me and you just kind of comment and give them ideas. He goes, well, okay, I can do that. Well, the whole night, if you go watch the video, you'll see I'm sitting there just pushing the button, and I didn't say a word all night. He was just and he was just yakking away. And what I loved about watching him was he was saying just all this kind of like what you talked about tonight, and what I always talk about, and he was just being an actor, saying, well, here's how I do it. Yeah. And it's basically the same technique that everybody teaches. And it was brilliant. Yeah. I mean, it was just brilliant, So again, you kids out there, even the big guys, Maurice was like, yeah, I don't do that. I don't know how to tell people. But the guy's a genius. He really is. And I think you are too, buddy. I really think you are too, because now, that leads me to another question. Do you continue to study?
Absolutely. I mean, for me, it doesn't stop. Talking about getting into animation now,
So you took Bob's class?
I took Bob's class.
Have you taken any others?
Yeah, I'd actually like to plug the network. I'm forgetting their name.
And you're drinking cranberry juice, for God's sakes!
Terrible.
Holy mackerel! Hey, you need your drink. Wait a minute, you need a refreshment. That's what. Come on in, Margarita. Margarita. Oh yeah. Margarita, ladies and gentlemen, Margarita. Blonde, blue-eyed Margarita. You have blue eyes, Margarita?
Nope.
No? What do you got?
Hazel.
Hazel eyes. Same thing. Okay, so you're studying with,
the
did you figure it out?
Voice Actors Network.
The Voice Actors Network.
Yes,
and where are they at?
They're actually over here in Burbank, and they have these little sessions that you can go in and actually work with a casting director or someone of that type that actually casts the stuff that you want to get into. And so, I got an opportunity to read in front of a lot of different casting directors and get real feedback. It was excellent, actually, and really helpful for me. But that stuff that I do outside, before I ever show up there, before I ever go to read in front of somebody, I've spent my time going over my characters, watching the animation. In fact, if I know who the casting director's going to be, I go look up what shows they work on, so I can understand what they like, what they don't like, and then watch the shows.
That's a really good point. So remember that, kids.
Yeah. That way I know what shows that they, because everybody's got their own sort of style. Figure out what that is and not necessarily emulate it, but keep it in mind, when you're doing things. Some people like things huge. Some people like things very simple and small, and everywhere in between. And so by the time I show up there to read in front of the casting director, I have an idea of what direction we will probably be heading, and I'm ready to pull out a couple of different options within that range or scope. Yeah. So it's But on my own, I watch everything. I watch, and I'm very diligent about making sure that, I know what's coming up and what's being worked on and so on and so forth like that, whether it be animation or video games or promo or commercials,
Now, how do you find out that information? Do you sit and have meetings with your agent and talk to them about it? Or is it just stuff you do on your own that you research, like when these projects are coming up and so on?
Well, a lot of the stuff, you can find out about on IMDb.
Really?
Yeah, most of the stuff like. The people will have projects in pre-production, or
okay.
There's, if you're talking about animation, there aren't that many places that do animation, so usually they have their websites and they say we're working on this,
Yeah.
and so and they're always doing initial promo videos that interview the people that are creating the show. So that, alongside with talking to your agent, or if you have a friend that works at the studio, lots of different ways of figuring out the information if you're diligent about it.
Okay, cool. Now, what about like the promo world? Had you taken some classes? What
I did actually. I took Joyce Castellanos' class.
Joyce, okay.
Yes, and she was
Joyce
excellent.
Castellanos, friend of the show.
Yes, she was amazing, and she actually helped me sort of get an overall, because before I went into the class, I think I came and talked to you about it. I was like, I want to do promos, and before I went into the class, I went and got, and Don LaFontaine was my hero. Even when I was a kid.
I think Don LaFontaine was pretty much everybody's
hero.
We all wanted to ride in a limo and go to work.
Yes, amazing.
Yeah.
But so I went and I went to voicebank.com and got their demos, and I was listening to what they did and the way they approach things and so on and so forth like that. And so by the time I went into Joyce's class, what Joyce did for me is that she took all the sort of nebulous information that I'd gathered and focused it, and gave me this chance to really understand why they sound this way, what it is that's behind the technique, that it wasn't just a sound or just a way of doing it. And so coming out of that class, I learned a lot, and I took that and forwarded it and went right back at that same material, and I would go to my agents and say, hey, I know I'm not doing this yet, but do you have any extra copy that I can have that I can practice with? And I would take that
that's
copy.
a good idea, too.
Yeah, and I would just practice it over. And I would practice it to the point that I was comfortable doing it without thinking. That's always been the thing with me, is that...
Well, but that's a good point that you make, being comfortable behind the microphone. And
Yeah.
that's something that we teach here at Compost all the time, too. So you got
huge.
yourself to that comfortable point.
Yeah. And that's the funny thing, is that it's kind of counterintuitive, because you would think you'd be comfortable just because you're comfortable. But I found, for me anyway, my comfort level comes when I've done it enough times that I don't have to think about it. There's complete, comfort in whatever I'm doing. And so when I walk up and speak, I'm not thinking about, do I sound like this? Am I doing this? All of those things have already been retread by my practice. And so when I actually do it, it just comes out.
Right.
And so that's been a huge thing for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember, when we go back to the dartboard days.
Yeah.
You basically kept coming into me and just saying, "Hey, man, I'm not comfortable with it yet. I feel more comfortable when I'm in here doing it with you guiding and so on and so forth."
Yeah.
So you took that time and did what you needed to do in order to feel comfortable.
In fact, I remember...
And that's a very individual thing for everybody. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Do you remember there was a time when I came in and I was like, I'm terrible. I'm horrible. I don't know what I'm doing. Will you just let me come? That was how the dartboard started, because I came in and complained. It was like, will you just let me do this in front of you and get your feedback? Will you just let me do that? And so it was that time where I really took, because I was in there like every day, to listen to what was going on and grow comfortable being able to, because if I could do it in front of you, that meant I could do it in front of, anyone.
Sure.
So it was a big time for me.
Yeah. And for those of you who don't know, we have a thing here at Compost called the dartboard o-payment, where if you come in, you got to throw a dart, and that's how you pay. And it's a long story. Call me, and I'll explain it. Oh, shoot, I forgot what I was going to say. But there was another thing that you did. Crap. I've been drinking too much. Don't drink during the show, kids. Okay? Thank you. So let me ask you this, and this will be the last question for us to wrap it up, kind of. What is kind of a typical day for you? Because again, you're a very successful actor, in my opinion. You've gone from not knowing anything to this pinnacle of a career where you're doing okay, right? You're doing all right. Let's just say that when Ike and I go out, I don't pay for lunch anymore. Okay, all right, and it's very generous of you. But for the kids who are starting out and want to get to the level that you're at, okay, what's like a typical day for you? Say you wake up at about 7 a.m. I'm guessing, and or 10, whatever. And what do you do during the day? Because you're kind of working every day at this point, aren't you?
So
with SportsNet, I mean, when you're doing promos, it's kind of, you're on call for like 24 hours, right?
Not always. It depends on what time of year, but yeah, from time to time.
Say it's basketball season.
Then yeah.
Yeah, exactly. If they call you at like 11 o'clock at night,
show up.
You got to be there.
Yeah.
And you actually have a booth in your house.
Yes. Yeah. Makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, because when you were doing TNT, you still are.
Yeah.
They actually built your booth, didn't they?
They didn't build it,
or
but
they gave you
they gave me some money to help.
They gave you some money and said, "Look, you need a booth. You're on call for us." So that's why I'm kind of So the kids out there who want to do this for a living, what's a typical day for a voiceover actor of your caliber now? Because you realize I'm playing darts. I'm playing darts during the day for assholes like you who come in and fuck up my day. Okay, so this is a successful actor now. What's your typical day?
In the morning, I usually get up at about 8, and I get up, try to get breakfast, all that stuff, all my personal stuff done before 9 a.m. Okay. And then usually it depends on the day. If I have sessions in the morning, I just roll through the sessions because I try to schedule stuff as early as possible. And so roll through the sessions during the day, and then usually around lunchtime, try to leave that time open to do, connect with people. Sometimes I have lunch
from
meetings.
9 to lunch, you're knocking out sessions.
Yes.
And you're making money.
Yes.
Oh, you know what? We need to have lunch more. I didn't realize that I should be eating with you more often. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then lunchtime, you try to do personal.
Try to, if there's someone I want to go to lunch with, try to leave that space open, connect. And then in the afternoon, if I have sessions, I keep working. If I don't have sessions, then that's usually my my study / practice / whatever time. I try also to stay in shape, so I work out during that time. But that's the time usually I try to fit in those things that sort of keep the rest of the machine going.
Right.
And so by the time the evening rolls around, either I'm getting ready to go to class of some type, like there's I have a workout group that I work with.
Oh yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, of other
like you have a Thursday night thing that you and a handful of guys get together who do a lot of promos.
Yep.
And you direct each other.
Yeah,
you
we
work
just
with
put each other through our pay.
And it doesn't cost you a dime, kids.
No,
you can do that. You get people together, and it doesn't cost you anything. You can do that. This guy does it. He makes more money than God and Moses together. I don't think God and Moses made a lot of money. The little thunder thing. I like it.
But yeah, getting together and practicing it's essential. It's essential, and there are still guys that I meet now, who are my heroes, and I'll talk to them about it, and they do it. So it's something I'm very big on.
Yeah. Well, I remember we did a convention at one of those Voice 2012 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I told you I was putting a panel together, and I said, I got a panel with Maurice LaMarche and Rob Paulsen and a couple of Bob Bergen and whatnot. And you're like, oh, can I be on the panel? I'm like, yeah, I'd love you to be on a panel. You talk about. He goes, oh, I just want to meet those guys.
Yeah, that's all I cared about.
so
the first half, I didn't say anything. I was just staring at them.
I know. It was kind of fun.
Great.
It was kind of fun. Well, listen, do you have any future projects that you can talk about? Anything on the horizon?
I can't talk about it.
But there are things in the works. Are they mostly games?
No, actually, the wonderful thing, I got to plug my agency, DPN. They are amazing.
DPN, are they still together?
Yeah.
Really?
Still together.
Wow. Okay.
The wonderful thing about them is that, they've given me so many opportunities, so many chances. And because of that, there's a lot of different things and a lot of different genres that I'm working on, all under NDA that I can't talk about. But yeah, I'm very grateful.
Okay. Yeah. Well, fantastic. Well, Ike, thank you for being here today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
This has been, again, you're one of my you're one of my heroes. No, seriously, man, because you've done again, I've had a fine career. I did okay and stuff. You know, I'm a journeyman actor. But I saw you start from nothing, and you've turned it into this career, and you did it out of hard work and diligence, and taking the classes and meeting the people you need to meet, and going and doing the workout groups and all that stuff. And it's all the stuff out there that these kids are always told to do. And one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show was because you're living proof of the success that can happen. Again, it's pretty lucky that you sound the way you do, okay? But even with that sound, if you don't know what you're doing with it, it's hard to make a living at it.
Yeah.
So thank you for doing my show.
Absolutely.
And I have to end it by saying, ladies and gentlemen, the Voiceover Doctor Show is brought to you by Fortaleza. Fortaleza, the best goddamn tequila I've ever had. Okay? All right, Jim Davey, ladies and gentlemen, on the drums. Play us out, Jim. And let's give Margarita a big round of applause. She's out of her costume, so she can't come on. But Margarita, good night, everybody. Thanks for being on the Voiceover Doctor Show. We'll see you later.
You know him, you love him, you want some more of him. The Voiceover Doctor, a real smooth talker. The Voiceover Doctor Show.